London, 1943. 100 German bombers cut through the clouds, radar locked on the city below. Then, suddenly, nothing. Their screens fill with static. Their targets vanish. Somewhere on the ground, one British scientist smiles. He has just blinded Hitler's bombers with something so simple, it almost looks like magic. His name was R.V. Jones, and his trick changed the war. For most people, radar was a mystery, a whisper in the dark, invisible waves that could see what eyes could not. But to Jones, radar was a puzzle waiting to be broken. He had spent years studying physics at Oxford, fascinated by the way signals bent, reflected, and vanished. When war came, his curiosity became Britain's secret weapon. By 1940, German bombers ruled the night. London burned, Coventry bled, and every siren meant another factory gone. Yet even in the chaos, Jones noticed a pattern. The enemy was flying with mathematical precision, too precise to be luck. The Luftwaffe wasn't guessing. They were following invisible radio beams, guides across the Channel, straight to British cities. Hitler's Air Force had turned the sky into geometry. Jones's job was to break that geometry. He was only 28 when he joined the Air Ministry's Scientific Intelligence section. While generals planned battles, Jones planned illusions. He mapped out enemy frequencies, imagined how to bend them, jam them, or feed them lies. He called it scientific deception. Each night he studied intercepted signals. Each morning he briefed commanders who barely understood him. But he was relentless. He told them, if we can make the enemy's instruments lie, we can win without firing a shot. They nodded politely. Few believed him. Then one night, in a quiet lab north of London, a radar screen flickered. A piece of metal foil, tossed aside by a technician, flashed across the scope like a phantom plane. Jones leaned forward. One scrap of metal had tricked the machine. What if a sky full of them could trick an entire air force? The idea sounded insane. Fill the air with tinfoil. Strips of aluminum, each cut to match the wavelength of German radar, 27 centimeters. Dropped from bombers, they would reflect radio waves, creating thousands of false echoes. Radar operators would see an armada that didn't exist. No signal could tell what was real. He called the idea window, a window that would open and close the enemy's eyes. But when Jones proposed it, his superiors froze. If the Germans copied it, they said, Britain's own radar would be blinded too. It was, they argued, a weapon too clever to use. Churchill himself hesitated. Both sides could plunge into darkness, and so the file was locked away. For a year the idea gathered dust, while the bombs kept falling. By 1942, Britain was tired. Tired of raids, of rationing, of promises that victory was just around the corner. In the skies, the balance had shifted again. Germany's night fighters had learned to track bombers using a new radar called Würzburg. Even in darkness, nowhere was safe. Jones knew that the only way to survive was to strike first, not with more guns, but with better science. He tested every theory he could think of. Could heat, smoke, or sound confuse radar? Number. Could magnets bend it? Number. But foil. Foil always came back. Each strip acted like a mirror for radio waves. He ran the numbers again. If every bomber dropped 1 million strips per mission, the sky would look like a storm of metal rain. To radar, it would be chaos. To London, maybe salvation. In early 1943, the Allies began planning their biggest offensive yet, a full-scale bombing of Hamburg, codenamed Operation Gomorrah. The city was protected by one of the densest radar networks in Europe. British losses would be catastrophic unless someone found a way to blind the enemy. Jones saw his chance. He went straight to the air staff. He told them, "We can make their radar see ghosts." Silence. Then an air marshal asked, "And what if they make ours see ghosts too?" Jones's reply was simple. "Then let them, because by the time they do, their cities will already be in ruins." Churchill approved the test. For the first time, Window was cleared for combat, July 24th, 1943. Night falls over England. Lancaster bombers roar into the dark, each carrying bundles of silver paper cut to the magic length. Crewmen open chutes and begin throwing handfuls into the slipstream. The strips twist and spin, catching the moonlight like snow. Below, German radar operators watch their screens explode with light, hundreds of blips, thousands, a wall of noise. "Too many," one officer shouts. They can't tell what's real. They aim at ghosts. Shells burst in empty sky. The real bombers slip through untouched. For the first time in years, British crews crossed the target alive. The bombing of Hamburg was devastating. In 1 week, the city was reduced to ash. Tens of thousands died. Even Jones, watching the reports, felt no triumph, only awe at the power of deception. His invention hadn't killed anyone directly, but it had made killing easier. He wrote later, "For every ounce of foil, a life might have been spared or lost." He understood the cost. Science could save nations, but it could never stay clean. Yet tactically, Window worked. The Luftwaffe was blind for months. British radar remained untouched. The Germans never used the trick effectively in return. The advantage held. After Hamburg, Window became standard equipment on every Allied bomber. Crews dropped millions of strips on every raid. Sometimes they used it to hide whole formations, sometimes as decoys to draw fighters away. The sky became a theater of ghosts. One pilot described it like flying through a metallic snowstorm. Each piece spun like a coin, flashing light, falling slow. The noise on enemy radar was deafening. Controllers cursed their screens. Generals demanded explanations. And somewhere in London, R.V. Jones quietly smiled. His idea, once too dangerous to use, was now saving lives every night. But Window was only one part of a larger war of deception. Jones's office worked on jamming, spoofing, and misdirection. He built fake navigation beams to lure bombers off course. He predicted the arrival of new German radar types before they were even fielded. His intelligence helped design countermeasures that protected convoys and cities alike. He called it the Battle of the Invisible. To him, the real front wasn't in the air or the sea. It was in the spectrum, those unseen frequencies where truth and lies looked exactly the same. By 1944, the Allies had mastered that invisible front. When D-Day came, deception covered every wave. Fake armies, fake radio traffic, fake radar echoes. It all traced back to one idea: make the enemy believe what isn't there. Jones's work inspired entire branches of modern electronic warfare. Every stealth bomber, every radar jammer, every chaff cartridge used today carries a piece of his mathematics. The same lengths, the same wavelengths, the same principle overwhelm the eye that sees too far. He once said, "Science can't choose sides, only people can," and he never forgot that his greatest victory was also a warning. After the war, R.V. Jones returned to teaching. He rarely spoke about Window. When students asked how it felt to outsmart the enemy, he would smile and say, "It felt like turning the lights off." He meant it literally and morally. He had spent the war switching signals on and off, creating illusions that saved his country but erased clarity. He'd won by making the truth disappear. In the decades that followed, secrecy wrapped his work. Only in the 1970s did the story of Window become public. People were astonished. How could something so simple, tinfoil, defeat the most advanced technology of its time? But that was the beauty of it. Sometimes the simplest idea is the one that breaks the machine. Today, radar countermeasures still use the same concept. When a modern fighter jet releases chaff, it's dropping miniature versions of Jones's foil. When ships fire metallic clouds to confuse missiles, it's the same principle he proved in 1943. Technology evolves, but deception never dies. Standing in the Science Museum in London, you can see a small glass case. Inside lies a handful of dull aluminum strips. Uneventful, ordinary, next to them a plaque reads, "Operation Window, used to blind enemy radar, 1943. People walk past without noticing, but those strips once carried the fate of cities. R.V. Jones died in 1997, aged 86. He lived long enough to watch stealth aircraft take flight, machines built on the same physics he once used to save London. He never called himself a hero. He called himself a servant of truth using lies. In interviews, he spoke softly about the moral weight of his invention. He said, "We learned that knowledge alone isn't enough. You must decide how to use it, and perhaps that is his real legacy. Not the foil, not the radar, but the idea that intelligence, human or artificial, always walks a narrow path between creation and destruction." So the next time you see footage of bombers releasing clouds of glittering metal, remember, each fragment is a whisper from the past, a signal from a time when science was the sharpest weapon of all. A young scientist once filled the sky with mirrors, and for a brief moment, the deadliest machines on Earth went blind. He didn't do it for glory. He did it because someone had to make the bombs miss, and because sometimes the only way to survive a war is to make the enemy see ghosts.